Yeah. Well, I did it last year, so that was like the first time.
Yeah, but you have to talk first, right? Okay.
All right. Are we ready to start? Everyone's ready for the session. How was morning? Oh. Interesting in a
good way.
Good way. Okay. Any fast reactions or any thoughts you want to share with the others about morning session?
Do we have to tweak our project so that it aligns with the organizations we visited this morning, or?
No. I mean, like the idea was that this is like inspiration for you to understand what they are doing and what they are doing, if they are doing something with design and like, so it's not like a project for a case company as such. Yeah. So it's your project, your baby. One more. Okay, no need to pause.
It was super inspiring, and I think the people there were really interested in what we're doing, and they were asking us all kinds of questions.
Yeah.
And it was super cool to come there and just be welcome. So nice to hear.
Oh.
I also wanted to say thank you to you and your team that you organized it for us and that you put us in touch with us.
Well, let's give a hand to Gia who made it happen.
Woohoo!
The boss. Okay, I'm gonna briefly introduce. You might have seen her in some of the episodes wearing panda slippers, maybe, maybe something else. Katarina Schilli. Katarina is our colleague. She used to do. She was teaching with me this course last year, and this is like her signature move. Like all superheroes have their own super attack or something. So this is like Kata's specialty, and I'm super happy that Kata had time for us, and it's gonna be fantastic 4 hours. So I'm just gonna.
You had some things still to say about
yeah.
some assignments.
So, friendly announcements. While you are having the session, I'm gonna be walking around here and updating the information I promised to give you, like with all the Facebook event and all that. So I'll share that on Teams. And just a friendly reminder again that these are your projects. So we are here to support you in your endeavors in solving pressing societal challenges with the help of multidisciplinary design tools and methodologies. So it's really, it might feel a bit kind of anxious creating, or it might, feel a bit like, whoa, taking a deep dive, but you're in safe hands. And if you have any concerns about this, please come and talk to Gia, me, or Adi, or, we are here for you all. And with that, now it's, okay, that's the end of my part, and now you get to enjoy Cooking Slam part 1, yeah.
/ effectuation. Yeah. Hi. Well, I'm really happy to see you because I'm also personally attached to this course because I built it up last year with Mika and Teresa. We built it together, and I wanted to meet you already on Monday, but I couldn't make it, so I'm really happy to see you now, the new batch of change makers. That's a great thing. Yeah. So I'm honored to be here and share some insights with you what I have picked up in the past years in Helsinki. A very brief intro about myself. So as you may hear, originally I'm from Germany, and I moved over 2013 to study IDBM, just as maybe some of you did, just because I've had the pure belief that this is the only master studies I want to do. Now, originally my background is architecture, so I'm very good in system thinking and combining different stakeholders. That's what I love to do. It's in my DNA. But during the past years, I also co-founded a startup where I was active for over a year. I recently left that, but they're still doing a good job there. And also, I'm part of the Nordic Rebels, trying to spread the methods to collaborate with each other and go beyond borders. So that's very brief about me. today I have two goals which I would like to share, insights which I would like to share with you. So some of you guys are from business, but some of you aren't. And even if you're from business, you may struggle still to understand all these mindsets out there. And what really helped me is to understand different approach, how do people actually strategize what they are doing. And this can be applied to businesses, but also to yourself. Like uncertainty is all over, also in your current project, for example. So strategy can be on a company level, it can be also on an individual level. And today I would like to share with you two different approaches. That's the typical managerial approach, how a typical manager you may imagine now would do it. And the other one is called the entrepreneurial approach, so how somebody does it differently, who is maybe a bit more innovative in what he's doing. That's my first goal. And my second goal is that, or our second goal is to deep dive into this process, so-called effectuation. So that's the entrepreneurial approach. How do entrepreneurs actually strategize at the beginning of their journey? They will not do it all the time, but they will do it from time to time. And I do hope that you immerse yourself with that idea to move on with your uncertain projects as well. Yeah, so the big question is how to master uncertainty in any level. Now, a strategy. What for you guys is a strategy? May I ask quickly, like, not that I'm categorizing, but who is from a business background? Who knows already maybe a bit more about that? Okay. And design? Ah, that's a handful more. Okay, and then engineering we've got. I do not fully categorize you like that because that's not doable. I wouldn't say a designer is only a designer. We are here to merge. But it's good to know that there is diversity here. How would you see as, what would a strategy be for you from a company perspective? What does it mean to you? On a very, just throw in some terms. Yes, please.
Set of goal and aims, like steps to process to get there.
Goals and aims and the steps to get there, yes. Yes, you want to? Okay. So you have a clear goal and you have clear steps, how do I get there? Anything else, what you understand under building a strategy, a process, how to...
Maybe a mindset or philosophy.
It might be, yeah, that's a good part to, it will relate to today, yes, yes.
It's like borders for you, not to get lost in the way doing things.
Good call, yeah, I never thought about that, but that's true. Yes, please.
To make some innovation or some promotion.
To make some innovation.
Or some promotion.
Ah.
Planning.
That's also a good call, because that's exactly the question. How do you make an innovation if you don't know what's out there, if you don't know the market, if you don't know the product, if you don't know anything? And that's exactly what we are tackling today. So all answers are correct, and some of them, they were leaning more towards a managerial approach, which we move into first, and the other one is moving more into exactly the innovative approach. How does an entrepreneur do things nowadays? I say a bit more about that later. So in a very short summary, a smart cookie, a researcher, Wildbank et al. Said, in the end, the strategy is what to do next. You ask yourself, what do I do next in the current being to move on? That's in the nutshell. But all your answers are correct too, because it's so much more. It's just like the essence of a strategy. But okay, now remember that guy on the seaside seeing only the fog? Well, what does it actually mean, what to do next? How to answer that question, what to do next? And as said, there are two approaches, managerial, entrepreneurial. There are many more, but these are the two we talk about today. And I would like to ask you, just like for like a few minutes, take the partner next to you and think about what would a typical manager, if you can categorize it like that, how would he tackle what to do next? So which questions would he ask himself? What kind of ideas would he have? Would he, for example, do a competitive analysis, looking who is out there or anything else? So just take like, are you kind of okay with the speed we are doing this? Okay, so just take a minute with your partners around there. It can also be 3 or 4 discussing like 5 minutes. Okay, what do you imagine? How would a typical manager in a big company sitting there, and now there is the question, hey, how do we create the next innovation or the next revenue out there or the next big deal that we get some new insights? How do we actually do that? So from a managerial point of view, imagine this gray 70s building, somebody's sitting there and he gets asked that question. So maybe just chat about it and you share your insights afterwards with me. Is this okay, the speed, or is it too fast? I jumped into it right away. Thank you so much. Thank you. Hey, can I ask you, would you have the willpower and strength to, because I didn't take now post-its, because we don't have so much time, just what people say, write it down so I can add it to the slides afterwards. Well, how do they see how a typical manager would approach that? So I would add it to the slides later, because I have a few pre-given answers, but of course it's valuable what they say.
Okay. Yeah, we can.
Perfect, thank you. Actually, the same will happen one more time later. The same will happen one more time later. At the very end, I will hope to remind you when it will be. So,
Okay, so now that you're going through your discussions, later you will ask them to voice out their whatever the discussion.
Exactly, and you would just write down some bullet points. Okay, for them it would mean they would do this and that.
Okay.
So that we added, and at the end I ask like another question. Hey, moi. So where I say like, okay, that I will ask you again. Can you please note that so we can add it to the final slides, so it's not lost. Oh, poor you. And you still made it.
My voice is still not okay.
Oh, honestly. May we wrap up? Like, you already done? Okay. Do you need a minute longer, or do you think you have some ideas? I'm speeding up a bit just because we have still a cooking slam to accomplish, so I try to get through that. So I would love to hear I hope you got the question, like what you have to say about how would a manager tackle that. And Gia will note down what you're saying, like tries to catch all the terms you're saying, so there's no big post-its today. And I add that to the slide so that you also remember your own comments, because I think there is no right or wrong and they're all valuable in one or another way, so they will be added later. But now we just do that verbally. Yeah, so what to do next? How would a manager do that? Any ideas? Yes, please.
Based on the competition, what the trend is looking like.
Analyzing the competition, yeah, a competitive analysis. Yes. Yes, please.
We had for some reason really negative approach. We were like thinking that typical manager doesn't look at the correct things or is focusing on like too much on numbers and relies on the past too much, and instead of like looking for the new opportunities, tries to like find what is the safest way to approach issues.
That's a good one. So there is, I mean, they're all good. I would say there's like 3 parts. Like there's focusing on the numbers. So what is the revenue I will get, or how much do I have to invest? Playing it safe is another one. And then also being backwards oriented. So they don't imagine what may be. I don't know if you have done already the scenario planning, or will they still do it?
We did it already.
Okay, so you kind of know the mindset. Hey, do I think future oriented, or do I only simply build on what do I know and what exists right now? Yeah, good point. Anything else, please? Yeah.
What kind of personnel do we have? So what kind of skills do we have to move forward into whatever we're trying to do?
Capabilities and human resources. Yes, true. That's a good one. Yeah.
We had the same, and like one of the like angles was, what are we missing? Like, what are we missing? Do we have to hire consultants? Do we know?
Okay. Yeah.
Close.
So resource management.
Resource management, and then also how do we take into account all our stakeholders if it needs to be done?
Politics. That's always around. I agree with anybody. Yeah. That's true. Yes.
I guess you would set milestones, and if possible, with as much numbers attached to them as possible.
Yeah, so that's pretty much what I think you said before, like you have a goal and you have the milestones in between, exactly. So, and then, yeah, most likely with calculations, how is my revenue? Yes?
Yeah, maybe find some potential trend of the market or the black market.
Trend research, yes, trend scanning, yeah. So it belongs partly to the competitive analysis, yeah. But it can also be future oriented to some extent, yeah. Yes, please. Did you want to say something? No? I thought you raised the hand, yeah.
What type of budget do we have?
Yeah, budgeting. So again, finance is a big term over there, which is fair enough. It's a very important issue and a very important point. All good points. I did a little bit of thinking beforehand. As said, that's why we add yours as well, because I think they're all valuable. Some characteristics are, and you basically covered them. You have a preset goals or the opportunity. You know exactly, okay, this is out there and this is what I want. You have a calculated return on, it's called return on investment. It's very often shortcut with ROI. So I wondered for a year, what the heck does that mean? It means return on investment. And so you basically calculate, what do I put in, and then what will I get back like in a year time, and you try to estimate that as much as possible. Avoiding surprises, of course, because you are trying to estimate beforehand, do a lot of math, competitive analysis, and yeah, invertible trends are like basically it can be only built on what's out there already. So they don't create, what you said before, they do not necessarily create radical innovations because they just build on what is out there so far. Now, we call this managerial thinking, and it's the characteristics are you have a lot of means, and mind you, means doesn't mean, who's not a native English speaker, meaning, because I thought that first, like what the heck is it all about meaning? No, means that anything, what do you have in your at hand? What are the capabilities around you? What are the human resources? What is the investment budget you have around? So these are all the means you've got. Maybe also a meaning. And as you mentioned many times, it is one given goal and the milestones how to get there. So it's pretty fixed, right? What would you say? It's pretty concrete, pretty solid, working since over hundreds of years the same way. And the emphasis is on prediction. So I predict in 1 year time the future of this target group X will look like this, and they will have these needs because I say that's the way it is, and they very much have their own perspective. And the lens is return on investment. So what counts is money, and how much do I put in and how much more will I get back. Any questions to that so far? I hope tell me if it's too fast, please. Yes, there were two questions.
Basically, the managerial thinking is really related to visionary people that have really vision of the future.
These are not visionary necessarily. These are managers. That would be another lecture. I can give that to you gladly, what is visionary. These guys are somewhat visionary. They are like kind of, this is just like of course they are envisioning a goal, but they are not like a Steve Jobs imagining, oh, the next laptop must be, like the next product must be design driven and must be smell like this when I open the product at first or something. No, that's a very visionary person. These guys are like more like, okay, we have a computer, what could we improve in an incremental manner? Hello. What could we improve in an incremental manner to sell a new product next year? Do you get the point? It's incremental. It's not radical. It's really step by step we make something better. You get it? And next question, there was another one.
No, just a thought that if some of those predictions or estimates change, typically those kinds of projects they will be longer.
Sorry, I didn't hear it.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
so if some of the means or the estimates or the predictions change, usually these types of projects or people are slow to respond to the changes, or they don't have like I don't know, like they don't imagine all the possibilities maybe.
Yes, they do not.
The reaction might be too slow also, or I don't know if you get what I mean.
I get very much what you mean, and it's a very good point what you said. It's like, so these guys have all the stuff on the plate, and then they start playing with these, or like the apples in the basket, and they start putting them like an investment almost. But they have calculated, and they rely on their calculations, so they are not agile. They're the opposite of agile. Imagine that any big corporation may be like that. Like they are planning a lot, they put a lot of money into, okay, what do I get in return? But if one variable change, they don't know, okay, how do I change? Because also their departments are built in silos very often. I'm painting a negative picture, this has good aspects. So the silos would be like, okay, I have this one designer who is only responsible for design and nobody else. So, but if this guy leaves, how can you jump in there? Yes, please.
But is this even a strategical thinking? Because what we in the slide before, or 2 slides before, we were saying that the strategic thinking is like that it's like some kind of guidelines for the future. But this doesn't look futuristic at all. This looks very much like looking back.
Yes, but this is how business works very often. They rather look back, and they are not that agile. I jump one step forward. As said, this has really good aspects, because if you have a big corporation and you have the responsibility to pay your employees every year, you cannot just simply take risks and just lose all your money. You have to have a stable income. So it's a very good approach for that. But it is not, as you said, it's not a radical innovation. But please do not confuse, because you have now a very innovative mindset. You are here to change something, and you are here to learn something, how to be different, how to be cutting edge. That's not a strategy, that's an innovation. But a strategy is basically, how do I move on an uncertainty? And there are very different ways to do that. Do you get the point? So you have already such a mindset, which is very cool, it comes in a second, to be future-oriented and to just tackle ambiguity with test and trial. But this is not how real world looks like so far in many cases. So just don't confuse it. Yes, there was a question somewhere? No?
No, I was just like agreeing with you that this is more like what is happening in the current job to change that.
Exactly, it's your job to tackle that. If that happens in big organization, it will happen in hubs, in small hubs within the, it's called innovation hub. I mean, the name says it. Because you can take risk with a few handful of people, right? Or it happens in a startup because there are just 5 people and they, well, whatever, you know, they move on afterwards. There was another comment.
I just wanted to add that at my workplace, we actually they launched a new innovation team, or well, I don't know what's the name gonna be, but it will start in a month because of this. You know, the traditional way of doing things is not cutting edge anymore, so they have to dedicate some people for moving forward and maybe just get the projects running, and you know, the cycle has to be faster. So
yeah, that's really good. So the cycle needs to be faster, faster iteration, faster testing, faster improvement, reacting to a radical change on the market. You have gone already through the design thinking, right? Design thinking process, test and trial, connect with the user and test and fail and trial as fast as possible, so you will learn as fast as possible. And that's exactly connected to that. The old organizations handled it now. Hey, for those who came late, so what we are trying to do today is we have a look at which we now almost passed. How would a typical manager ask himself what to do next in an uncertain situation? And now we are jumping into how would an entrepreneur, or maybe yourself on an individual level, ask yourself, what do I do next if I do not know what will be in the future? So that's basically the point. Yeah, as said, an entrepreneur would tackle the challenge what to do next differently. And Saraswati, it's not my favorite name to pronounce, researched how an entrepreneur would do that. She studied 27 founders of big companies who started as a startup. So these are all pioneers on their field. And she asked herself, okay, the scientific question was, how do entrepreneurs reason specific problems in transforming an idea into an enduring firm? Quite academic question, I would say. In the end, it means, how do they tackle the question, what to do next to build up an innovation, to build up a product, to build up a company? Because many start very little and grow really big, and they are the ones who threaten the current market. Exactly what you said, the old organizations are threatened by these radical innovations because startups disrupt the market. And she wanted to know, how the heck do they do this? Now, getting back to this rather scientific picture is actually from her. So we tackled the managerial guy, right? An entrepreneur has a completely different, actually the opposite approach. He just has a look like, what given means do I have in hand? And it could be any outcome he's achieving with it. So he just looks, what do I have at hand now? And then he starts running. He starts moving. He doesn't envision much. Mind you, we heard the word visionary before. This is not how every entrepreneur does it. Steve Jobs, for example, was highly visionary. But this is how many entrepreneurs do it. How many innovations are starting by not envisioning a grand picture, but just like, hey, here I am. Okay, I know how to do this and that and this. And maybe, yeah, I find a partner who does something else, and we meet and we agree on something, and we move on to develop the idea. Are there any comments so far on that picture? Or do you need a minute or anything? Just tell me. Yes, please.
So was it 27 companies which you interviewed?
Sorry?
Was it 27 companies?
Yeah.
Which you interviewed? So is it like, is it included in both of the graphics, or?
No, this is a typical approach, like it's quite well known in the industry. And this is like, so the entrepreneurial thinking, that's what she focused on. She basically focused on how do entrepreneurs strategize, let's call it strategize. It's an approach, and they will not do it all the time. It's the last note of this presentation. You do this as the first and second gear when you start driving. It's not your fifth gear in the car if you have a fifth gear. So it's not that, but it's how things start to grow. It's how to set the seed and to grow it up. Okay, if there are no questions, I move on. Her favorite example is, okay, imagine a manager who has like a recipe. Now he knows exactly what are the ingredients I need. He can imagine exactly this will be the outcome. He can calculate how much will it cost, and he will know before he starts cooking if he is okay chef, this is what I will get, right? The entrepreneur is so different because he just looks into the fridge, and so he's like, okay, what the heck is in this fridge? And then he takes the ingredients he kind of likes to merge, and he may create a completely new recipe and not even knowing at the beginning what he is doing. Does he do like a pasta or does he do like something else? He just doesn't know. He just starts without really consciously thinking about it. Are there any comments on this? Can you relate to this somehow? Can you even imagine yourself? Okay, where are you rather located? It's not bad to be on the recipe side, to be honest. It is very much needed in this world too. So, can you relate to this example? Okay. Yes, please.
I mean, it's a very context-based situation, right? Because sometimes you want to create something based on what you have, but sometimes you want to start from scratch, for example. Or, like from a business point of view, you're never on one end of the spectrum. You're somewhere in the middle between the two.
Are you? Like it may be that some are, but is it always is it really the case?
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
I thought it was a statement. What do you think? Like, would you start always with something in your hand already, what you already know, or do you think you really start from scratch from a business idea? What do you think?
Maybe it can be some kind of mixture, because I think like just starting from scratch, like the right image, if you have no idea and you don't know what's going on, is maybe also a bit risky. So that you build on some recipe, but then, for example, with the seasoning, with the spices, you do experiments, but with the basic recipe you stay. Or you add tomatoes instead of aubergine, or I don't know, like to try out on a small scale.
That could be an approach, and I think what you will always have in your hand are your skills. If you have ever cooked before and you kind of have a feeling of, hey, okay, each recipe needs a little bit of acidity, a little bit of sweetness, and a little bit of this and that. If you know that, you will combine the ingredients the way you think that they should be. And you will figure out new things. Like I personally believe that nutmeg is like the perfect catalyzer for many things to combine flavors, but I tested that over time. So, but I start with the knowledge I have. That's at least always there. If there is partly a recipe, it may be. But maybe not. Like for example, I never cook after recipe. I hate it. Like, I may look at the picture and then I start doing stuff. So it's really a type question. Yeah, but it's good that you started the discussion. Yes, please.
There was a question.
Oh, I didn't see. I'm sorry. Where was the question? Yes.
Well, it was for the previous pictures, just like as a comment maybe, that if I think about people I know, because I have some startup entrepreneur friends, but I also have people who are like really loving the hierarchy in corporations, that fact that everything is really strict. And I think in general, in my opinion, it's a huge advantage if you are able to use these both approaches based on or depending on the situation.
Exactly.
But it's crucial to understand that there are people who are like at the very end of both sides.
Yes, and thank you very much for that comment, because this is like, I'm painting extremes today, so just that you get the mindset. Because there are also these extremes out there. There are people who could never ever cook without a recipe. But exactly, your comment is right. It is very good if you know how to switch between these two approaches, because both are needed. If you're just always improvising, then or like building everything up out of what is at front of you without calculating, okay, how much how much do I need to put in there, then it's not healthy over time. So thanks for that comment. So Saraswati built she identified a process, a pattern, which all the entrepreneurs kind of came up with. And I hope we get through it like that you enjoy going through it and understanding that process, because we just have to go through these steps so that we're getting somewhere with this process. So, but it's not that painful. And we would zoom into the steps, and I would like you to think either about a startup yourself, okay, which you have in mind. Can you relate to that? Did these entrepreneurs do a similar approach at the beginning? Or then also to your challenge right now, like you have got a brand new challenge on your plate in your teams, and how could you actually relate that to your own work? So we start with the bird in your hand, and that's, as I said, it's somehow, who am I, what do I know, whom do I know? So really, what are the means at hand I have right now? Can you maybe also within your teams or from your own perspective, like how would that, does it relate with your project so far? Like that you were thinking about that right away, okay, who knows what, or anybody? Do you feel familiar with that, or is it like completely? But I can also ask you later if you prefer to go through first. What do you prefer?
Maybe later.
Maybe later. Okay, thanks. Thank you for a comment on that. Now, this is the biggest, one of the biggest difference between the manager and the entrepreneur, or yourself, or an individual, is the affordable loss. As we said many times now, the manager is thinking, how much do I invest? How much return on investment do I get? And the entrepreneur doesn't think about that. He just says, how much can I afford to lose? Can I afford to put in a year into a startup, and if I screw it up, will I still survive, or will I just die? So he really thinks about that way. Do you get the difference in that? Yeah? Okay, that's a really crucial point, and maybe you ask yourself also, like taking a risk. If you take a risk, like, okay, now, no, I will not take the risk because it's not calculated and I don't know what I will get in return. Or do I say, yeah, for sure, I'll take that risk because in the end I'll survive. And there, the lemonade principle plays inside. So that's basically coincidence and being opportunistic. The lemonade principle comes from, if you have lemons in your hand, then make out a lemonade out of it. Be opportunistic, think around the corner, and watch out for coincidences in there. If you sit next to an interesting guy in the tube and you start talking about your startup idea or about your current challenge, and this person has really a good insight, say, hey, could we meet for coffee and could we map that out a bit further? That would be a typical lemonade principle. Or like you watch a TED talk and you hear about a new theory out there and you say, oh wow, that really fits to the challenge and this is what I want to incorporate now. That's being opportunistic and not just thinking, okay, we planned it this way, so I will stick exactly with that for the next, okay, in this time it's 3 weeks, but in real life it's a bit longer. Now the Patchwork quilt combines two. It has the interactions with people, that's kind of the guy in the tube you're talking to, or then your team in your case. And then you kind of create commitments. Maybe it's an investor, it's a VC or somebody else, or an angel who would like to invest, or it's a new team member. Well, this doesn't belong to it. Through that you create new goals and new means, and you start over again until you get to a point where you feel like, wow, that's it. This is what I really want to develop. And then you may turn into a manager rather. And the pilot in the plane, this guy, so an entrepreneur tries to control the here and now. He tries to control all his actions. He doesn't predict what may be and how can I react to it. He just thinks about how can I move on with these steps and control what's happening around me to get to my aim and to find the goal I want to achieve. That's pretty much it. So when looking at this, can you, now let's go to the question back. How does it relate to your challenge? Can you identify with that? I mean, you're really young teams, like 2 days old or 3 days old. It's really fresh. But principally, in your mindset, can you identify with that approach? Have you been aware of it? Or is it just like the first time you see that and you go like, ah, okay, that's not so wrong, maybe? Yes, please.
I think in our group, because we have a diverse background, we're able to bounce off the ideas of each other, like the tube example you gave. So, except in that tube example, we don't know the stranger here, we know them. So, especially, for example, with an engineering background talking to a business background, your idea could either get constructed upon or criticized upon, but in a constructive way, because you realize that maybe it was not financially viable, or maybe it was not structurally sound, for example, from an engineering perspective.
Yeah, really good. Like you really can enhance from the different disciplines to get really fast feedback and hook up with with commitments who just take which roles. Maybe a quick run through from your own perspective, like just throw in something like, so not just from a team level, but from your own perspective within the team. How would you interpret this? Like, what would be your means at your hand? I guess you all have slightly different means, right? You're very diverse. So what would be your means, for example? What's your background, for example?
Graphic design.
Graphic designer. Do you have hobbies, like something like photography or something, or?
Cooking, decent social skills.
Cooking and social skills, that's valuable. Do you have any values which you really fight for, which you really believe in?
Well, being nice to people on a personal level.
Okay.
Is where I find it's easiest to make an influence.
So you have really interpersonal communication is a value for you. You really care about how do people communicate.
Yes.
And that's a pretty neat skill and a pretty neat value, I believe so. Okay, anybody else? What are your values and what are your means in this hand? Sorry, I don't know your names this year, and I will not be capable to get them right now. Maybe in the cooking slam later.
Well, I have a design background, so I know quite some stuff about interaction design, but also on a bit of innovation processes.
Mm-hmm.
And like the entire design thinking loop, so I can map out the process, like the project management skills, values. I'm quite critical at everything, and just like being honest about the stuff. So immediately react upon if something is not the way you think it's supposed to be or something. So.
Okay.
You know, like being straightforward.
Good. So you have really a broad background, fitting nicely in here. If you know all the design thinking processes, how to manage a diverse team, how to manage the process itself, having a critical mindset. It's like, sounds pretty much IDBM. I know myself. Sometimes we have a too critical mindset that can, but it's either way fine. I would love to hear more from all of you, but since we have a time limit, but maybe do it even in your own team and go through this process yourself later. I mean, you will get these slides anyway, so it may help, like, hey, what are my values? What am I good in? And what is maybe not just job related? Hey, maybe you said you are a good chef, you like cooking. Well, that's a perfect skill. I just turned that into a cooking slam because I love cooking too, and I really like the flavor studio, so I made something out of it. So there are maybe also hidden values and hidden capabilities which will be really useful in the end. So you may want to take your team and just take a drink in the evening and go through this and run it through it yourself. Okay. Well, affordable loss, that's now, compared to your challenge, like in the context of your challenge, do you have any affordable losses? What would be an affordable loss for you if you would take a risk in the challenge itself? Something you don't know, will it work out or not? What would you be willing to risk? Would you be risking a good grade? Would that be an affordable loss for you? Would you be yes?
I would say dignity.
Okay. Would it be that you maybe want to, the affordable loss for you is to have a fight with your team and then, okay, life moves on? What are the losses you can take? You may think about it. I mean, that is now in the context of the challenge. Yes, please.
Well, to some extent, compromise on your original idea.
Yeah, that's a good loss. I can compromise. True. Yes?
I think the only loss I can think of for myself is that since the whole idea of the challenge is to be as open-minded as you can and brave and not be too afraid, since at the end of the day, it's not like we're building a business here and we lose our hope and fail at the idea. I think the biggest way would not be to take advantage of that and the whole like think outside the box and don't be so stuck in the own way.
Yeah, true. So the risk is, okay, you may lose if you think outside the box, but what can you really lose? Well, okay, then I get maybe a bad grade or something. And some people don't want to take that loss. They say, no, 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 I will work exactly the way I have to get the best grade because that's my focus. So that's something you may also negotiate in your team. Hey, how much risk are you willing to take? And what is important for you? Because if it is important for you, for example, to interpersonal communication, you will not risk that. You don't want to risk that people cannot communicate with each other. People know, hey, we may keep a certain tone in this team to move on. Yeah, interactions and commitments, they are kind of going without saying, right? You are interacting and committing. You're taking roles in your team. And through that, you iterate over time. I think I have to speed up a bit, but we're almost through. Last question. What would be core benefits of the effectuation approach compared to the managerial or anything else out there? What do you like about it?
You have an opportunity to think outside the box and come to maybe completely new solutions to an old problem in a way.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, an opportunity to think outside the box and actually to be aware of it, right? Now you know the process and you may be aware of it and you go like, okay. Actually, I may ponder around, but actually maybe it makes sense in the end. Maybe not. Well, that's an affordable loss, right? And that's actually true because in the pilot of the plane it says new products, markets and firms. Well, it can be also on a personal level, new relationships, new ways of thinking and so on. But it's new, it's unknown, and it's something radical for yourself or then for the market. It's something, let's say the good old example Airbnb. Before these guys were really effectual on what they did. Well, they needed a place to stay at, so they started, okay, we need something, and they started building up gradually. Whoever would have thought that this is grows to a really disruptor on the hotel market in the end. Like hotels are threatened by Airbnb because people prefer to go to a regional place instead of going to a Hilton hotel or to a whatever, Scandic hotel. They prefer to go to my home, for example, when I'm gone and then check it out. So it's right, taking an opportunity to look outside the box. Yes. What else is a benefit?
It's dynamic.
It's
dynamic.
It's dynamic.
You reach new means and then you update.
Yeah, it's dynamic. Yeah. And active, agile. It is, yeah. And it interacts with your ecosystem, actually. It reacts to your environment. It's true. Yes?
Like on a basic level, it's much more positive than the other thinking patterns. So it's much more optimistic rather than pessimistic.
Yeah, it's optimistic. Mind you, you can get really lost in that. I can tell you, I've been there. I founded the startup. But you can get lost, but it is an optimistic approach in the end. Yeah, very true. Okay. You don't have to read all that, but you get the slides. But the point here is, note that this is the first and the second gear. It's not like a recipe, like a process which you can follow. Okay, ka-ching, I made my goals. Ka-ching, I made something else. No, it's kind of natural and organic. So you may jump forth and back. It's not like that rigid. It's nothing you can hold on like this recipe of a manager. But it is a good guideline to what's out there. It's a thinking framework, as it says here. And you typically use that when you start innovating. And you may don't even know that you're innovating. I don't think that Airbnb guys have thought about, hey, let's build up the biggest business in the hotel area. I don't think that they had this in mind when they started off on a couch somewhere. Okay. Almost done. I hope it wasn't too intense in this dense room. What are a few takeaways? And maybe, Gia, could you write them, maybe note them down so we can take them with us also later. What are a few takeaways on the managerial and on the and on the effectuation approach? I mean, this was a pretty jump into the water, so I hope you will, as said, you can go back to it over time, and Adi can tell you that sometimes things make sense after a year, but I really tried to scope it down that it also makes sense to you now, and you can actually take that mindset to your challenge. So what key aspects will you take for now in the moment? Yes, please.
Personally, for me, because of my workplace, I know that they will start a new team, so I'm really curious about how it will work, because people have to change their mindset.
They have to change,
yeah. This was a good presentation on that. So, because I know the people who will be attending the or switching to the new team. So I know people who are really innovative and they really know what to do. They have been doing this for years, but there are also people who has been working 30 years at the same company, thinking on the other side, like they come from the different angle.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's really interesting to see.
And now you kind of know the mindset. And mind you, they might be not aware of that because they didn't come to IDBM to hear about that.
Yeah,
so
the people who are jumping in, but of
yeah.
The people who have been doing it. But I like the idea.
They
structured it, so it's going to be really interesting.
Yeah, and conflict is also, like, if they have a conflict, that is one way of changing. It's a change process. You can have a conflict within yourself or a conflict with a colleague. If you don't take it over the top, getting back to interpersonal communication, you can get somewhere and create change. That's a change process, one of them. Yeah, and mind you, because what you've just dived into for a bit, and I hope you get back to it, if you talk with people about it, I ask often, have you ever heard about effectuation? And they go, no, I don't know why. It's like, it's from academia, and academia is slow. So maybe they know it in 5 years' time. But you know it now, you can take it and move on with it. So that's the good part. And also spread the word. And it is very closely related to lean startup. But this is more lean startup, you will learn about later. It's more methodologies, and this is kind of a mindset and a framework. Okay, any other takeaways? Or was it too much?
I have one more.
Yes, please.
Just got me thinking. But yeah, maybe for the traditional firms or traditional organizations, maybe the switch from thinking in a traditional way, switching to the more effectuation thinking. Maybe the loss part is quite hard to like.
Yes, it is.
Incorporate into the new organization, or I don't know. For me, this just got me thinking that how much do we afford to lose if we see something in the future? Like it's a switch.
It's a very good point.
It's a huge one, switching from the traditional way of thinking into something new. So, like, how much do the traditional firms afford to give resources for the new people who are doing the innovation? You know, how much they trust them, for example, how much they trust the other organization.
That's a good point.
Inside the firm, I don't know.
And also this, as you said, it will be most likely a hub who will create that change. It will be not that Zappos, for example, in, I don't know, do you know Zappos in USA? They did it's like Zalando, do you know Zalando? Yeah. Okay. they have created this on a different, it's on an organizational level, not just related to effectuation, but they have done a radical change and changed their entire company structure. They changed hierarchies and everything in one go. I actually would have to read how they're doing right now. That would be complete radical, and it went through the news like hell on organizational science. But then again, as you said, like usually firms create hubs, and these hubs need to think, how can we innovate? How do we organize ourselves, and how do we overcome resistance within the company? Yeah.
How they will present the new ideas, or how they will present the future of the firm in order to get more resources, of course.
Yeah. I have a last comment on this, so thanks for that. You have a lot of ideas, and your mind right away starts progressing because you are currently in the context of a company. And I can give you a personal takeaway from IDBM, because I've studied that as well. So when you are in your teams over the years, like in this year very much, you will be a lot together, and you may hear repetition in a course. Okay, let's talk about the design thinking process. Let's talk about prototypes. Let's talk about effectuation or whatever. And you may go like, oh my God, we know all about it. This is like just repetition for us. I can give you my personal opinion on that. It may be a little bit repetitive, but firstly, try it out. Make a journey map. Make a blueprint prototype, a visual blueprint of a service blueprint of a service you're developing. Try these tools in reality. That will firstly enhance it, because very often in our case, we were like, yeah, we know about the journey map, but then we never made one, and we were like, oh, at the end, like, oh, how do we actually do it? So be open-minded for that. And since you were so active on thinking on how does that actually fit to a current organization, and that's my main takeaway, whatever we are doing here, we are breathing it like air. But if you go out there, we are weirdos, and we are change makers. If you go to any organization, you have to think, how can I present my ideas that people will not resist, that people will actually commit to it? It's like, this here is like almost a bubble. And you may think it's the reality and the normal stage over time, but it's absolutely not. So I beg you actually, be aware of that, because you are the ones who can change it, and not the ones who are currently in the companies. So that's my personal, from heart telling statement. Now, we go back to that example, and I think we pretty good in timing with the theory part. I hope it was okay. Are there any final comments or questions on what we just covered in the past 50 minutes? No. Well, so in academia, people like to write, and they mapped out the process, and they always said, yeah, well, cooking is like effectuation is like cooking without a recipe. But then I was like, how would that process look like? And why don't you actually test it in reality? So again, the IDBM spirit comes in there. Take a theory and make it real, because otherwise it's just a freaking theory and nobody cares, you know, and nobody understands. And you may think, what did that lady talk about in the last 50 minutes? Well, we take it now a little further. So since we asked that question, how would effectuation look in a process like? We now go to a different place, and I would like to open the Cooking Slam 2018. So what you will find there is a translation, my personal interpretation. You can critique it, send me feedback on it, whatever you wish, on how to follow a cooking process. And where we go now, I will tell you more about what's happening in the slam itself, and I hope that you will enjoy the session, because I shut up and you will be the actors on that. Thanks. Now some open door, please. Really hot. Gia, could you guide them where to go? Or do you want to have a 5-minute break? Or?
Yes, please.
Okay, let's have a 5-minute break.
This is horrible.
Yeah, it is. Let's get a 5-minute break, and then we will call you all together to go on. Thanks. It's so hot here. Ah. Yes, please.
I'm not so sure. So you introduced the two strategy or the thinking ways just now, but I feel like could it be that the effectual way it's more towards the startup, but when a startup is growing large scale, they will also need to have
Yes,
the other.
exactly. This is. I tried to emphasize it, but it's so much information. That's exactly the case. But good that you ask. I will say it over there so that people actually realize it's very much the truth. This is there is this slide here. So when you go through the slides, and if you are uncertain, just check out this slide, because it says what is effectuation and what is it not. And it says here, the first and the second gear may be effectuation. Maybe, because it's just one approach. It may be that you are very visionary and you never use that process, right? Even though you are a startup. But that's, yeah.
Because I got lost in the discussion that thinking the effectuation it's more of a way that we should take, but it's not what you're trying to say, right?
No, not at all. It's a good point, and I will point it out when we go to the other place, so that because I don't try to missionary you to this path, just that I try you to understand this way thinking is so different. And having a managerial approach is very needed in this world too, for sure. Yeah. So, no worries if you cook after recipe, that's fine. Just not tonight. Hot here. Well, better than last year.
Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt. I didn't want to disturb.
I tell you something when this is off. Can you turn it off?
Yeah, and it's not streaming anymore.